What's the biggest sign for someone being out of touch with society? You millennials and your participation trophies. Yeah, thanks mom. You wanted that so that you wouldn't feel bad about having an average kid. Don't look at me like I'm at fault for those. Best response to that I've ever seen. A former boss, an incredibly great guy, but also someone who has been worth upwards of 100 million since the time he was about 21, spotted me cash for lunch, handed me $2 100 bills and asked if that was enough. I'm having 21 bananas for lunch, so it's a little short. In the UK, journalists ask politicians about the cost of basic grocery items, or see how out of touch they are. If they don't know how much a loaf of bread or pint of milk costs, then they are out of touch. Our last Prime Minister apparently had a crib sheet with info about this, current songs in the charts, etc. He even pretended to support a football team. Ah, yes, I know that Black Eyed Peas cost 50 cents in the clubs. I was at a small conference in 2014, and one of the organizers was basically a real-life Ned Flanders, middle-aged, but very boring and vanilla. My dad actually thought babies were delivered by storks, not midwives. At one point, he asked if everyone could write their email numbers on a piece of paper being passed around. Email numbers, in 2014. Best thing I've ever heard. I had a consultant tell me we needed to focus on non-tech solutions. Like this whole tech craze is just going to blow over. We're a tech company. Having a swastika tattoo on your forehead. I kid you not. I know someone who had one, then wisely had it removed once he got out of jail. Now he's got a swastika shaped scar on his forehead. I guess then people might give you the benefit of the doubt and assume you were the victim of a hate crime. A young 20-year-old once said to me, also 20, "Why don't you just have your parents pay for it?" He wasn't trying to be a dong. He genuinely thought everyone's parents will just buy them a $350 ski lift season pass. They don't understand that even though they don't care if they smell as if they haven't showered in weeks, the people that they interact with do care. I've got a co-worker who doesn't shower more than once every 2 weeks, and I can always tell when she's in the office or where she's been in the office. No one says anything. Oh god, that must be horrible. They don't come into the office on Fridays to hand out paychecks to their employees because what's the big deal? You can wait to get it on Monday. Department of Labor would be interested to hear about that. No one has to use the internet. Try finding a job, paying bills, booking a ticket, or even getting into college without the internet. My dad, whose job would not exist without the internet, has said this in conversation. He was being 100% serious, too. My father is 80 years old but has been a pariah his whole life. Although it's slightly more excusable now that he's elderly, he has spent his whole life alienating himself, even from his own children, and then blaming everyone but himself. And the reasons he comes up with are insane. You didn't want to be an engineer? You must be lazy and bad at math. Your brother married into a wealthy Jewish family? Guess I better become anti-Semitic. You have a tattoo? What a fad. And his whole life has been like that. He invents reasons why people don't like him, such as his old boss not liking him because he didn't like people who grew up on a farm. As a result, in his old age, he is single and rarely sees his kids and grandkids. We recently started planning a birthday celebration for him, which he promptly took over all of the planning for. It's going to be a disaster. Sounds like his parents criticized him right out of reality. In my school, a group of students were selling goodie bags for their project, and some dude literally just took something from their goods without paying. Later in class, his fuckwit doesn't even deny he literally stole something. He actually admitted that he stole something, but instead he tried to justify his action by saying in the store this doesn't even cost $1. Everyone in class, except for his other cool friends, just couldn't believe how this kid was struggling to understand that stealing is not okay. Even though 5 people were literally trying to talk sense into him, he just wouldn't grasp the concept of stealing and even got verbally aggressive at some of them. It just wouldn't get into this kid's head that stealing anything is not acceptable. BTW, this clown is 18 years old and wants to become a police officer, which makes this whole ordeal very ironic. In the end, he was forced to pay the price by the principal. Sadly, no more sanctions were held on him. Very ironic. He could stop others from stealing things, but not from himself. I knew a man who didn't know how to save money. He lived with his rich parents until his mid-30s and never bought any food, toiletries. First thing he did when he moved out was to buy an apartment and a brand new Mercedes. He was in a lot of debts. Even if he has a great job, he didn't seem to understand sales, and I don't think he ever heard of coupons. I took him shopping and it was like an awakening for him. I can honestly say I know that I'm out of touch with society when it comes to the workforce. I'm almost 30 and only have had 4 jobs. Every single one was through a family friend. I landscaped and did construction with no resume application, not even an interview. I was just told to show up. After college, I told a family friend what I studied and they needed a person in that area of expertise at their small company. Again, I was just told to show up. They showed me the ropes and now I have a real career with an important sounding job title. I know I'm lucky, and I also know this is not typical for most people. That's why my only advice to my friends is to network as much as they can. It's more about who you know than what you know when it comes to job searches. They watch a lot of cable news programs. They actually believe insane things such as that we live in more violent and scary times than previous generations. Hint, this is hands down the most peaceful time in human history in basically every way you could possibly define it. Complaining about how young people aren't independent enough and need to move out on their own sooner and get less help from their parents. These people act like ties to family and community resources are ruining young people. This view is out of touch with the large portion of the world's population in which young people don't leave their family's home until they are ready to be married and join a new family home. When someone screams about poor homeless people having cell phones and says they need to be pounding the pavement for a job, like how do you expect them to apply, to keep in touch with work, get called for interviews? There's so many people out of touch with how technology driven the world is now. People who I know make $40,000 a year and have multiple kids yet insist that they are middle class. Yes, you may have been raised middle class, and yes, you have a degree, but making $40,000 as a single parent with multiple kids means that you are probably 1 or 2 missed paychecks away from ruin. It's not to denigrate those people. There's nothing wrong with them. They just have been told that they are on a better position than they are, and probably want to believe that they are. This is why the poor seemingly vote against their own interests in some cases. People don't believe they're poor. My grandma complains about Aboriginal people being lazy and that they're all uneducated because they didn't finish high school. My grandma didn't finish high school and nor did one of her children. My mom just shared this story with me. She was sitting at a picnic table outside of a dormitory at the University of South Alabama when a dude came up to her and asked if she wanted to talk about religion. He asked if she believed in Jesus, and she said no. He said, "What if I told you all the fossils were fake?" My mom noped out of there fast. Being poor is a choice, and how easy it is to get out of being poor. First off, it's not always by choice. You can make a decent salary but barely have crap to show for it because of where you live. Then there's unexpected events with the expenses and debts, divorce, medical bills, etc. That'll eat away your income to try and pay those off. I've had my soft-aching broke days when a 99-cent taco from Taco Bell was considered a splurge. Getting out of being poor isn't easy. It takes loads of time, work and personal sacrifices to do it. The worst is when people judge someone for using food stamps, especially when they are wearing nice clothes and drive a decent car. You don't know their story. Their husband could have just died, and they were a stay-at-home mom and haven't worked in 10 years, yet they still have the assets but no income. Sorry, people don't look poor enough to fit your mental image of poverty. When they look at someone who works their butt off, and see that they don't have a nice car or a house or anything, and say, that person should have tried harder, or if the hard worker mentions benefits that would keep them fit for work, or heavens forbid might just improve their quality of living. What a lazy socialist, when they see someone doing a non-office job, and assume the person doesn't pay their own bills, like your pizza driver. Don't tell him, but maybe you can get a coffee with it. LOL, I made more money doing pizza delivery than I do at my office job where I have to be licensed and take SEC courses. It was far less stressful as well. You don't have a job, you're not trying hard enough. Hit the pavement and hand out resumes. Buddy, oh, get a job, just get a job. Why don't I strap on my job helmet and squeeze down into a job cannon and fire off into jobland, where jobs grow on jobbies. You can't say jobby in Scotland, it means poop. Thinking that, as a kid, getting your maids and servants to be customers at your lemonade stand, because you set it up in your dad's big, gaudy tower is making the best of a bad situation. I met a homeschooling family who didn't allow their kids to know about any crisis, violence or attack in America. The 17-year-old never heard about 9/11 terrorist attack. One day those children will enter the real world and be riddled with crippling anxiety. Showing no empathy for other people. Also, anyone that can hurt a pet is someone that could easily hurt a human. There are some seriously sick buttholes out there. I don't think that's old being out of touch with society more than it is being a psychopath. When they believe crime has gotten worse over the last 20 years. When they believe global warming either 1. Isn't real, or 2. Isn't caused, in whole or in substantial part, by human actions. When they believe crime has gotten worse over the last 20 years. Crime rates have probably gotten lower, it's just more efficiently reported nowadays. When your wealthy teenage niece comes over to hang with your daughter, driving a newer, nicer car than yours, and then casually slams said nicer, newer car as a piece of crap because it's used and whatever and is completely unaware that the person she just complained about the nicer, newer car is a head of household provider who worked more than one job at a time in the last 5 years, never asked for any help, and managed to buy and pay off that older, not so nice looking car in the driveway, completely unaware of herself, her values, her very presence. She is going to a mucho expensive fashion college in NYC because it was something to do and she really has no passion or talent for fashion. This is a silver spoon fed risky behavior engaging bored wealthy teen who comes to my house in a sweatshirt and cutoffs. I have never once heard her express any interest in fashion. She didn't even want to learn how to sew. I sew and sew well. Taught by my mother who was a seamstress, and thought it looked boring. She is basically going to an expensive butt school in NYC for something to do and has no idea that it is outrageously expensive and very close to impossible for anyone but the wealthy to afford. She is being raised like a total butt and I feel sorry for her. I feel sorry for the rich kid who gets everything handed to her. She has no values whatsoever, lies and steals. I read that faster and faster as it went on. Here's one I experienced a few days ago, when faced with the issue of how Walmart doesn't pay their employees a living wage. This guy tells me, the thing is, they have the choice to work there or not. If they don't like working there, they can always go find a different job. I said to him, I don't know if that's true. I think for a lot of small towns, Walmart may be one of the biggest employers in their town. But there might not be other job openings for things they can do. They can work in a factory. I've always able to find jobs when I didn't like one. And you have a good back, 2 working legs, no major injuries, no criminal record, no severe learning disability. Take away any one of those things, and you might not have such an easy time finding work in a factory. And a lot of the people I see working at Walmart have all of those things. At that point I'll let him just continue his rant. That was the point when I knew he was the kind of person to believe they can tell all about a person from looking at them without speaking to them. I don't know about you, but I can't always just look at a person and tell whether or not they have a health condition that would limit them from routinely lifting 50 pounds. I've talked to people who have worked at Walmart, and none of them liked it. Posting this on my alt because the guy knows my main Reddit account. A guy I know legitimately asked if it was socially acceptable to have his anime figures prominently visible during a job interview over Skype. I was giving a tour of a locomotive repair facility and ran into a mechanic who had grease on his hands and overalls. One of my tour attendees, a woman in her 60s, said, I could never do that job. I hate getting dirty. I hate sweating too. Whenever I go to the gym I walk on the treadmill until I start sweating. Then I stop and go home. I had a coworker who would poop and get it all over the toilet seat when he wiped. He knew the cosmetics girls had to clean the bathrooms, but he never bothered to clean up his own mess. He just didn't see the problem in making us clean his poop up. When our boss confronted him about it, the guy just said that it was our job to clean and we shouldn't be complaining about doing our jobs. I feel like he was incredibly out of touch. Someone constantly trying to outsource their own problems. Whether it's the government, the corporations or society, they've always got a problem with it. Not saying there aren't serious issues with the world, but it's probably not the man keeping you down. I had a roommate like this. Nothing was ever her fault. It was her ex's fault, or the landlord's fault, or the neighbor's fault, except it was actually all her fault. If they start loudly and confidently making statements about politically divisive topics in a room of people, looking for affirmative support, without having accurately discerned their general stance on the subject, receiving a class on new transgender protection policies in the workplace, in a room full of people who largely lean left on social issues, probably not the place to openly question the validity of the basis for someone identifying as transgender, or the need to have a policy for treating them appropriately at work. Waking up early, taking a shower, heading to school halfway there. Hey, where are all the people? Head back home. National holiday today. First 2 hours of my day today. Car salespeople paying attention only to the male if a couple goes in looking for a car, or asking if a woman's husband or father is okay with her trading in their vehicle, or steering a chick away from trucks and towards the sedans. Women buy cars on their own, and being sexist is a good way to lose a sale. Ditto mobile phone salespeople. There's a guy in my university that seems to believe that radical left-wingers are responsible for each and every problem we have in the world. Now, I know there are people who are the polar opposite, think the same of right-wingers, but since I have to listen to his BS on a daily, I'll complain only about him. I live in the America, so I can only speak about it. That being said, Americans on both sides treat politics like it's freaking sports. They think the other side has to lose for you to win. Here's a thought. Politicians work for us and in the end we're all supposed to win. Idiots. My taxes just go to the obese person eating at McDonald's with health issues. From the guy who doesn't work, pays no taxes, married to a woman who does work, pays all the taxes, and conveniently forgets that taxes go to a whole slew of important things. But don't worry, see, he doesn't need health insurance cause he has homeopathy. We won't need to worry about that one much longer. YUN0 Ramak, you make X amount of dollars. Now, how are you still living paycheck to paycheck? This student debt is going to pay for itself. I was looking for work and my dad told me about a job that you need a lot of experience for. I told him I had no experience and he said that wouldn't stop me. Yeah, but it would, Dad. Wealth. This isn't meant as a declaration of class warfare or anything, but the wealthy are often insulated from many of the day-to-day activities and problems that make the common man what he is. The ever-present needs of a roof over your head, food on the table, good education for your children, reliable transportation, medical care, etc. These are struggles that are so fundamental for the low and middle class that most of their lives are spent attending to them. This also isn't to say that the wealthy don't work hard, or that they don't have struggles of their own. It's just that they're not the same. If I'm in the top 5% of incomes, there is very little chance, even in a crisis, of my family going hungry, becoming homeless, or not being able to access good healthcare. Those worries are essentially never on my mind. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.